Franco learned I was an operatically trained baritone, and he said, I have this music that I wrote years ago, originally for baritone and then adapted it for a soprano. Why don't you try it? So he gave me the music, and it was magic.
It's so lovely to talk to you, Chris. Is it Chris or Christopher?
Well, privately it's Christopher, but professionally it's Chris.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you do it that way. So,
yes.
Yeah, Chris. I've heard about you, and that you and I've heard your voice. It's beautiful. You have a beautiful voice, and you're a baritone.
Thank you.
You're a baritone in South Africa.
Yes, I've been singing since I was a very young boy. Yes, I grew up in a very musical household, so music just sort of is part of my life and always has been. And my parents were both singers in the Pietersburg Civic Choir. Pietersburg is now called Polokwane, and it's one of those things that just formed my musical existence, for the lack of a better word, because pardon me, because I was just steeped in music and singing specifically since I was very young. My mother has a very beautiful voice. My father will be the first to acknowledge that he does not have the nicest voice, but he loves singing and he loves music, and he teaches music as well.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, he's actually trained as a teacher in general, but his subjects are English, history, and Afrikaans and Nederlands. And he started his career as an English teacher, but his love and passion for music has sort of taken over. And wherever he goes and whatever school he's involved with, or has been involved with his whole career, he's been involved musically. At some point, he was the trainer and conductor of a very prestigious brass band in Petersburg, both at Capricorn High School and then also on a provincial level. So he was that guy. He trained bands like those. So that's just my musical background. He was interested in classical music, which I obviously am as well, and he really inspired me in many ways to just follow this as a path.
Did you also play an instrument when you were younger?
Yes, I played the piano. It took a very long time for me to actually really get to grips with it, because I was a very lazy boy. I know I was, because I could sing, it was always easier just to sing it. I was very good at it. It sort of came naturally. Where piano required just a bit more effort, and I wasn't really interested in that, because I also had a whole lot of other things going on. I enjoyed acting. I enjoyed reciting poetry. I enjoyed reading, and I wrote quite well, at least by the time I got to high school, because I had some very good teachers at primary school. So I had a whole lot of things going on, but then by the time my voice changed when I was about 16, from treble to baritone, there was this moment when I had to decide, okay, are you going to sit around doing nothing, or are you going to learn how to play the piano properly, finally? And I had an excellent piano teacher at high school called Mrs. Debbie Bierman. She took me through that. It was wonderful.
And now this transition, was it for you difficult to adjust to your voice being lower?
I think psychologically more than anything else. Physically, it didn't actually. It wasn't one of those traumatic experiences where my voice goes, all of that. It wasn't a breaking experience. My voice one day I was still singing in the treble clef, and the next day it just had dropped. It just basically, I became a baritone overnight. My range did shrink, but not as much as I think many other people go through the same thing. I think actually I was very fortunate. So, but coming to grips with having a different voice is a very different, it's a very interesting experience. I think because also I sang entirely through that whole process, I didn't stop singing. Some people said, oh no, you must stop singing completely. I think that's damaging. Yeah. I think you need to, if your voice is changing, and women go through the same thing, girls go through the same thing slightly earlier than boys. And I think stopping singing is the worst thing you can do, because that really affects your pitch relation.
Oh, I
you
see.
can't hear.
Okay.
You're not making those associations anymore. So I think it's important to do that.
Did you sing in a choir at that time?
I sang in a choir at primary school.
Okay.
And at high school, my dad was the conductor. He was also the English teacher at school, but he was the conductor of the choir when I was in grade 8 and grade 9. And that was around the period where my voice was changing. So, it was an interesting time for me, because suddenly I was singing bass, where at the beginning of the whole situation, I was singing soprano. And it was a very, very interesting period in my life.
Yeah.
Because then when he left the school, someone else took over the choir and wasn't quite as successful. So he's a very good conductor. So it worked very well with him, but with the other person, it just didn't. So we stopped having a proper choir after a while at the school.
But then you continued singing. Did you? Where did you sing then? Did you just take singing lessons?
I took singing lessons in grade 8 and grade 9 from a combination of people. For a period of time, I took lessons from Kathy Owens, who was a friend of my father's from Polokwane. And then I took singing lessons, and it was a monthly sort of thing. It wasn't, or a bi-weekly thing. I can hardly remember the frequency. Okay. But I took training sessions with Maureen Elof, who's the mother of Erika Elof, who's quite a prolific and brilliant soprano living in Britain. And that had a profound effect on my life, because she had also, a few years earlier when I was in primary school, introduced me to my first art song, which was Heidenröslein from Franz Schubert. And that was really quite a pivotal moment for me, that introduction to Heidenröslein, because I'd just been, singing fun little songs and doing ice statements and all of that. But the first thing where I felt I really shone as a singer was I think a combination of the German language, which I sort of just fell into pronunciation-wise very easily. She helped me with a few things, and it was like, I think we had 3 sessions, and then I sang the thing, and she refined it a bit, and then I think it was it was specifically for an ice did, but I got a very high mark for that one. In fact, I think I got the highest performance mark that year at the Petersburg Ice Did. It was almost, I'm not trying to blow my own horn here or anything, but it was a transformative experience for me, because I had never experienced music that way before.
And it was then also the recognition that you received.
Well, of course, we are all a bit self-involved, especially artists. This is why we go into I think why we go into this business is because we want recognition. I think it's important for us as human beings. It's something in us that needs that. So it was the recognition I got, and it was also the fact that it was so easy. It just happened. Later on, it became more difficult, of course, but at that moment, everything just fell into place. It was just a wonderful experience.
That's great, yeah. That you can. And how old were you then?
I was 11.
Really?
At that stage, I was still a boy soprano.
Yeah.
And it's a very funny thing. I'm talking about my childhood and how, because I've had obviously many more artistic experiences as an adult. and some would argue more gratifying experiences. But that's a moment that I will never forget. That sort of, because it was also a strange day. I had to be at a different school directly after my performance. So I was sitting right in front. We'd requested that I go first. And I sang my song. I went up, did it, and then I left. And because I had to rush to Capricorn High School to go and deliver my unprepared reading and my dramatic monologue. Very strange situation. There was lots going on. And I think a week later, when the results came out, someone said to me, "Oh, you got this mark." It's not an A++. It's something higher than that. It was like, I didn't know what was going on. So it was a surreal experience. Sorry, I'm ranting about this one moment.
No, but you know what? It's important because it is always this one moment that triggers something that makes you carry on and makes you, drives you. And I think this is so important that we also hear that these things happen also to young, when you are young. Yes. And this is why it's so important, I think, to be exposed to art, because this is where you find it, I mean, I spoke to a young, it is my youngest interviewee. She's 17, and she said how she wanted to become a marine biologist, and how in grade 10 she suddenly discovered, but acting, she started acting and taking drama at school, and how it suddenly just changed her life and made her decide to go and study drama. And you think to yourself, it was a big decision that she made at a young age, but this is because the school provided this art subject to her to discover it and discover what her strengths are. So now I think it's so important that the artists talk about that, where it started. But then now, did you go and study then afterwards, after school?
Yes, after high school, I was interested in way too many things. I was very good at art. I was really wanted to be an actor. But I was also very good at piano and singing. They were both sort of on the same level there. And I'd gotten my grade 8 Royal School's vocal exam. By that time, I was singing opera, which was unadvisable. And I got into university, any university I wanted. But I eventually went to Rhodes with a goal of studying, doing drama. But then I went to the auditions at the Beethoven Room at the Rhodes Music Academy. And that was a very interesting moment, because I think I realized that I couldn't neglect the musical part of my life yet. And I auditioned for singing, I auditioned for piano, and I ended up doing a double major.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yes, in my first year only.
Oh, okay.
But it was in my first year, I just did a double major, and I think that we all just wanted to see where I'd go, which direction I'd go in. Specifically, I think piano was it was overwhelming for me, and I felt, and again, I think eventually it just came down to singing just came more naturally, and it was more part of me. So it sort of flowed out of me more. And so we decided second instrument piano. And then for various reasons, I moved to Pretoria. I think there were things going on in my personal life, and Rhodes just was too much for me. Rhodes is a very intense environment. And it's a very creative environment, but you have to be very focused. And I stopped being as focused as I could be personally in that space. And so my father and I decided, you know what, rather move to University of Pretoria. It's in a bigger city. I have family there, more family there, because I did have family in Grahamstown, but it wasn't intimate family. It wasn't like my aunts and uncles. It was his uncle, his uncle, who I love dearly. My great uncle Peter. He's a professor of politics, but eventually we decided the University of Pretoria is better. It was more stable. It was more focused. The approach to the degree was also a lot more, a lot different. It's more what I wanted. I think if I'd thought about it, I would probably have rather gone to UCT, to the opera school.
Oh, I see.
But I didn't think about it like that. I thought at that point I was really not in a space where I could make decisions about, okay, I want to be an opera singer now, or I want to do this or that. So I finished my BMUS at the University of Pretoria. It was wonderful. I had Hanli Stapela, who's a wonderful South African soprano, as my singing teacher. She is now the head of vocal arts at the University of Pretoria. Well-deserved role that she fulfills wonderfully. So yeah, that was where that went. And then after university, because I got my degree in, I think in 2010. And then after my degree, I auditioned at a few places, and I got into, I did some chorus work for then the Black Tie Ensemble. And then the next year I auditioned as a soloist. And when I'd gotten in as a soloist, it was really a moment for me, but it was also very strange because I was in a space where I was in a relationship with someone, and I wasn't equipped at that stage. I was too young to be able to do both. At least that's how I felt at the time. And pardon me. I went through a whole slew of things all at once, and my career was sort of put on the back burner. And a few years later, I did a musical theatre show at the People's Theatre in Braamfontein. It was children's theatre. By this point, I was singing a lot less, and then I decided to start teaching. So I got a job at the National School of the Arts. Look, I had been teaching on and off already since I was a student. But at that point, I decided, my career isn't going the way I wanted to. I'm not making enough. I'm not bringing enough income in. So I decided to become a teacher. So I started teaching at the National School of the Arts. And that was a transformative experience. That was another transformative experience, but in a different way. It was difficult because my personality type isn't a teacher personality.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm more of a confidant. That's why I work well one-on-one with a vocal student. When I stand in front of a group of people, that isn't an audience. I love audiences. Audiences make me very happy, but they're there to hear me and have an experience with me. Whereas I feel in a classroom setup, they're there to learn from me. And I feel that that's a lot of pressure. And kids can be very intense. Let's just go there. I felt while I was finding my footing as a teacher, it wasn't really what I wanted. Then I moved to Cape Town for 8 months. That was a very, very interesting period in my life. My partner and I decided to try it out. It did not work. It was a very, very distressing experience because I don't think I belonged there. I didn't feel at that stage at least that I belonged there. It wasn't as if the people were unpleasant. It wasn't as if the work was unpleasant. Although I have to say that job was incredibly demanding. But the people were wonderful. It just didn't work. So when we moved back to Gauteng, I started rebuilding my relationship with various theaters, various performance venues. And as we've gone on, because I did a lot of work for Brooklyn Theatre all through my studies. and all through the early part of my career with Black Tie. So I still did work for them. I don't know if you know Brooklyn Theatre.
Well, I've spoken to the director there, and
Willem,
so I know of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, I did a lot of concerts for them. I did a lot of performances for them. When I came back, I sort of I started again with at the chorus level. I think we did the Coronation Mass, and then we did a Christmas concert, and then they had a scheduling conflict for Don Giovanni, which they did at the beginning of 2018, or was it 2019? I can never remember. Anyway, they had a scheduling conflict, and they asked me to sing Leporello with I think it was about a month and a half's notice. So I had never sung Leporello before, and it's not really my fach. I'm not a bass baritone. I'm a lyric baritone. Yeah. So technically, the role of Don Giovanni is more appropriate. Although not really cut out for me completely, it's in there. That's a good space for me to be. But Leporello was low. Luckily, his aria is a delight to sing. I mean, it's right in the middle of my register. So it was a lot of fun to do. And that was another one of those moments, those freeing moments. Yeah. It's like I described the first time I sang Haydn Lewis line in public. That was very, very much a, wow, this is wonderful. And I felt the acting went well. I had a wonderful castmates. And I thought that was quite a good production. It really had a lot of beautiful things to it. So we did that. And that was a very, that really was, it's almost like, okay, I'm back doing my thing again. Yeah. And then later in that year, I was cast as Henry Higgins in My Fair Lady. Oh, wow. My very good friend, I was very fortunate. But my very good friend, Deirdre van Schalkwyk, who ran a production company called Big House Productions in conjunction with Brooklyn Theatre. She really wanted to do My Fair Lady because, for many reasons, but mainly because we all love the musical. I have grown up with it. I used to watch My Fair Lady, the film, with my grandmother, because she introduced me to MGM musicals all the time. It was a wonderful upbringing in terms of classic cinema. I'm still obsessed with classic cinema. But it's one of my delights in life is just trivia about cinema and watching old movies. But specific to My Fair Lady, I really love the part of Henry Higgins. I know that's a very controversial stance to take because he's a bit of a misogynist. But I don't think deep down, I think it's all to do with his upbringing. The way I read the characters, he's brought up very sheltered, and he's incredibly intelligent. So he, even at the best of times, he struggles to understand people. He understands concepts, he understands ideas, he understands society, but only in abstraction. He's one of those typical geniuses. He understands things only in abstraction. And what ends up happening is he's confronted with a very real person who he can actually affect. And when he does, he doesn't know how to deal with the result, because the result is that he's taken someone with very close-minded social ideas and a very unpolished persona and public persona, turned them to completely the reverse. And now this person is strong and resists him in a way that he had never anticipated being resisted before, because everyone just does what Higgins says, except that up until the moment that Eliza says, "No, I'm sorry, I'm not doing this." And I think that was that moment, that catharsis for him is one of the most interesting things, I think, in the work. So I did Higgins, and yes, and then not long after, COVID hit, because there were a whole lot of things planned for the year after that. But then, unfortunately, the COVID hit and the theatre really couldn't sustain itself anymore. It just didn't work. It wasn't viable anymore. And I think Willem probably talked about that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know why I didn't move outside of that at that time and go and find work elsewhere, but I think the same thing was happening everywhere else.
Yeah.
And so I think in many ways that caused COVID has caused a whole lot of different things that are both good and bad in my life at the moment. Because if not for COVID, I would not be at Diep in die Berg. I live in a complex called Diep in die Berg, and it's wonderful because it's a small community, and I would not have met Franco Prinsloo if I had not moved in here. We've become very good friends, and it's been one of the most challenging, exciting, and fun experiences of my life, because I recently, about 2 years ago, split up with my partner. So I'm on my own completely. And this has been wonderful. I also sing in Vox Chamber Choir, which is Franco Prinsloo's brilliant chamber choir, which I'm sure you've heard them.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. And it's a real privilege. And he sets a very high standard, which is wonderful for me. I love it. I'm very much of the opinion that if every person in the choir sings well and works together, you can get the most wonderful sound if you follow the conductor. It's not a democracy. You have to follow the conductor. Yeah. And that's what Vox is. It's just the most wonderful, freeing thing. You know, it sounds like a paradox, because you, on the one hand, have a whole group of people doing what one person says, but that frees you up to be creative in so many different ways. But besides the choir, Franco learned I was an operatically trained baritone, and he said, I have this music that I wrote years ago, originally for baritone and then adapted it for a soprano. Why don't you try it? So he gave me the music, and it was magic. It was called Love's Answer. It's on my album. There was only one movement. And he subsequently did a second movement called Senseless Trees. But it's magic, because it immediately took me somewhere else. It's Shakespeare, and it's an extract from a poem called The Passionate Pilgrim. It's right at the end. And it took me immediately. I could see the scene. There's the summer's day with the meadow and the garden. And then there's this plethora of beautiful, lush vegetation and animal life. And then suddenly he hears this very sad sound of the lark. The nightingale, sorry. Why do I confuse the lark and the nightingale? Yeah. Ridiculous. No, the nightingale. And the nightingale sings the most doleful song. I think that's one of the words. And he's empathizing with this bird. But no one actually cares what life is carrying on around the bird as if nothing had happened. But something's obviously upset the bird, and everyone just goes along their merry way. And that's what the whole piece is about. It's like, it doesn't matter what it doesn't matter how you feel. The world will go on. You're responsible for your feelings. And you're responsible for your situation. And around you, everything will go on, and it's up to you how you deal with that. Wow. Which is very pertinent to my life at the moment.
Really? Yeah.
I think that's in essence, what happens in that work.
But isn't it beautiful? Yeah, but isn't it beautiful that how we relate to art, and how it speaks to us, and it's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really art is the one thing, and I'm talking art in general. It's the one thing that makes, for me, life worth living. Yeah. And I think a lot of people who are focused on other things like business and commerce and sport or whatever, everyone deals with art on some level every single day of their lives.
Yeah.
Anything you touch, if you go and buy something new, a new object, however fleetingly designed, that was designed by someone. It didn't just happen. And that is art. The music you hear every day in the shopping malls, or driving in your car, your designed car,
yeah,
to wherever you have to go, that's art. And it's in everything all the time. But I think people take that for granted, that it's just there. And it's not just there.
Yeah.
There are people who put work into it. I think that's the thing that artists are always struggling with. It's that real quest for validation the whole time.
Mm.
Some artists don't go for that. They don't need that. They just create art because they must.
Mm.
But if you want to make your way in the world as an artist, I think that validation is nothing to be ashamed of. I think it's nothing to dismiss as sort of just superficial. It's important.
Yeah.
Because in some ways, on some deep level, you need it to carry on doing it. Because some of the artists I know best who have never had an issue with validation. They just always did what they did, and they carried on. Now, because of COVID and because of all sorts of extraneous factors that are happening in the world, they're having issues with their confidence because they get validation in ways they don't even realize.
Yeah. Someone
just mentions in passing, oh, that was beautiful. Or someone buys at work. If people aren't buying your work, that in itself is sort of a negation of your validation. If people buy your work, they are validating you. So it's a very interesting experience to be an artist in this time, because you just feel like your life is at a bit of a plateau.
Mm.
But I don't feel that anymore, because I did for a long time. I don't feel that anymore because I feel like I have an idea of where I want to go and how I want to support myself on a financial level so that I can make more art.
Yeah.
And yes.
Well, this is, but this is, I think everybody in this time have rethought what they did and also what we have to appreciate. And I do think, I agree with you. I think that the one thing about art that I think is so much about, it's the same as love. It's not really it's not about the giving, it's really how it's received. And I think with art, this is the secret, is that how it is received is what really brings the joy. And it's the same in love, how your love is received is really what makes the relationship. And I do think people have now also, I think, realized how important art is in our lives. And and also how connected art is with sciences and with maths and with all these subjects that we always thought of as separate subjects. They are really all connected. Yeah, I think there's a lot of positive, yes, of course, negatives, but I think there's a lot more positive coming out of this situation now.
Because I agree with you. I find our society has been very, in some ways, stagnating. And I'm not saying, I'm not on any level saying that the pandemic has been a good thing, but I think because we're humans, because we feel, we make good things out of bad situations, and we have for many centuries. And I think that's what we're doing. I think everyone in the arts and everyone in the world is trying to do the best we can with the situation. And I think we should just support each other. I think we should really just support each other in whatever way we can to make even better things out of it. Because there's no use saying, oh, it's been so terrible, and then not doing anything about it. Because then what was the point? Just support each other, keep going. And I have to say that I've had the most wonderful collaborators. First, I mentioned Franco Prinsloo earlier. He's one of the most gifted composers in South Africa. And I ventured to say the world. One of his more recent works, the Kruis van Liefde, which is an Easter oratorio that he wrote, is magnificent. And it's really a transformative work. You can't listen to it and not have an emotional experience. I don't care what religious convictions you have. I think that has much less to do with that music than the actual spiritual experience of listening to the choir and ensemble perform that music. It's visceral. It is really a wonderful, wonderful experience. And in many ways, that's how I feel whenever I sing Franco's work. Because all his other Shakespeare songs are also so beautiful. But one of the best things that I got out of this situation was a wonderful working relationship with my pianist, Eugene Joubert. He's magnificent. He's really one of the best pianists I've ever worked with. And I just can't, because he's supportive in a very subtle yet firm way. You know, singers, we tend to let things run away with ourselves. And I feel, because you also have to at some point release yourself into the music, I feel. But he has a way of helping you and guiding you through it while still being artistic and making the most beautiful support structure for me. And then at times creating the most beautiful dialogue with me. Because sometimes the music is dialogical. It's a conversation between the singer and the pianist. And I think it's just the most gratifying experience, because, you know, that recording session was done in as little time as possible. We spent a lot of time preparing, of course, but when we got to the recording sessions, we really didn't have a lot of time, because studio space is expensive. And even though we were given very good deals with the recording studio, it was still, you know, artists, COVID.
Yeah.
I'm teaching part-time. It's not a full-time position. So there's a lot of those aspects. It was really intense. So when we got there, we had to really just go. We had a bit of time between each song to breathe. And I think especially recording the Finzies, I wasn't feeling great that day, and we booked the recording session. So I just had to go with it. But what was magical to me is the support I got from Eugene and from Franco, because I was not feeling confident. They managed to get me to a point where I recorded the songs and they sound the way they sound. for better or worse, I think they came out beautifully. I really think the Finzies were a great recording session. And that is completely due to their support. Without their support, I don't think I'd have been able to do that at all. With a different pianist, I think I might have had a different experience.
Well, I've spoken to pianists who specifically like a leader and to work with singers. And this is what he also said, is that he loves this interaction and this way of working together and working with the singer. And we sometimes forget this when we listen to the music and you hear the piano, but there is this interaction. And for me, it's wonderful when I see a liederabend, for example. I love to see this connection between the pianist and the singer. Because you sometimes just see them looking at each other and that there's this connection and that they've worked together. You can get this feeling from that. So I love that. Yeah.
It's one of the most wonderful parts of it, is that working with someone else, that connecting with someone, and you can communicate non-verbally with each other, with a look. And the other person will know exactly what's going on. And that also doesn't happen all the time. Mm-hmm. That takes time and work to get there. But once it's there, it's elevated. It's something that just lifts it above everything else. It's a wonderful experience.
Yeah, I think it is the chemistry between, also it has to be the chemistry between different artists. It cannot all be the same. Yeah, but... So what is the wish now for you?
The wish for me is to continue my life in art as best and successfully as I can, and make more albums like these. I want to perform more in opera. And I think that would be one of the most, to really be in a proper operatic run in Europe, because we don't really have those in South Africa. That doesn't really happen. We have like 1 or 2 performances and then it's done, unless you work for Cape Town Opera. I think they're one of the few opera companies in South Africa, and they're one of the few that has the resources and support to be able to do an extended run, or at least a partial run of an opera. So yes, I don't know if it will be with the Cape Town Opera, but I would very much like to at some point sing in a theatre in Europe, because I just want that experience. I really want that experience. And I would like to make a real career as a recitalist. Singing lieder, discovering new stuff, singing newly composed work, and also re-examining old repertoire. The stuff that always comes back to me, and I know it's going to sound so, oh, you're a baritone, of course you want to sing that. But there's a reason. It really speaks to me, is Dichter Liebe by Robert Schumann, and Winterreise by Joubert. And everyone's going to be like, well, of course. But it speaks to me on a very deep level. Yeah. I remember singing when I was at university, Winterreise for a recital. It was a very meditative and out-of-body experience, because that is. And one of the things I'm most excited about re-examining is to find how now, after a whole lot of different emotional things have happened to me, do I examine it? How do I re-examine it? How do I rethink certain phrases? How do I reconceptualize certain songs? Because certain songs meant something different to me before and have a completely different context now. So that's something I'd like to do. And of course, I'd like to do a lot of English repertoire and a lot of South African repertoire. And one of the most important things about that is this new thing that I'm doing with Franco Prinsloo and my friend Marlies Hart. She's a pharmacist, but she's also got a B.Mas degree. So it's called Leader Laboratory, and it's also a podcast, incidentally. And it's really all about South African art song. And it's one of the most gratifying things so far that we've had. We've had some high-profile guests. One of our guests, we've had Peter Besaidnout, who's a choir conductor and mainly a composer. We've had Hendrik Hofmeyer, who is a professor. Yes. Yeah. You've spoken to him. What a lovely man. Really a wonderful experience that his experience is just so mind-boggling. It was wonderful talking to him. And then most recently, Conroy Cupido, who is a professor of vocal art at Northwest University. Yes. And Potchefstroom. So it's a very, we're trying to broaden our repertoire because we have a song with every single episode. So it's either recorded by someone else or we record it. And we're actually doing a call for scores soon where we ask composers from South Africa or all over the world to send music that is inspired by South Africa or that features the South African language, because we have 11 official languages, or that is written for, in a South African context or South African story. And very importantly, that's the core of what we're doing. Sometimes in the show, we might feature a South African artist singing a Western art song, but we want to focus a lot on new music we haven't explored yet. And that's why it's interesting to talk to university professors and professionals in the industry, because, for example, Professor Conrad Cupido has actually written a book on South African art music and specifically vocal art music. So that's fascinating to me. And we very much want to explore that and try and extend that at some point into creating a leader competition, art song competition in South Africa, creating a composers competition in South Africa, and also do workshops where we exchange ideas with conservatories from all the universities across South Africa. I think that would be fascinating because I think the Lied is a very important part of the history of Western art music. It sounds like it shouldn't be, but it was revolutionary. It was a very new thing. By the time the Lied came along and developed, that implies something. That implies a certain economic power that the middle class, for example, started to have, because the people who wrote the art songs before they had patrons like Mozart, and he had some art songs that are almost not classified as that, but they are. That's what they are. Before that, it was all arias. Everything was. It was either written as an aria within the context of an opera, an oratorio, or a cantata, or it was written as a standalone aria, but it was still called an aria. The Lied, the German Lied and melodie and songs in general were not so formalized yet. An idea, and the 19th century with the revolutionary influx of the piano and the affordability of something like a piano for the middle classes, it just changed the entire way we think about it. And it opened up a whole different class of people across the world to explore their emotions, to explore their thoughts and feelings musically. even if you didn't sing it, play it, you didn't compose it, you could play it and sing it at home.
Yeah.
And it was home entertainment. You could never have home entertainment before. It was always go out. Unless you could throw a ball in your palace, I think home entertainment was not something that happened.
Yeah.
You'd go to a tavern, or you'd go to the concert hall, or you'd go to see the opera. But there wasn't that thing of you stay at home and you have your own amusement. You make your own soiree at home, invite some friends over to your house. That didn't happen. And then with a piano, that obviously was a different idea. And then you have this exchange of emotion and exchange of ideas that just ferments into this wonderful development and expression through poetry and music in the 19th century. And it's a very special thing to me because it just changed the way the whole world works for me.
And it's this is why I also think after this period there will be new things and new ways of doing it, and it's so great that the possibilities. I'm so looking forward to see how it will change, and what new things will be explored. But have you heard of New Music SA, the organization?
I have not heard of New Music
because
SA.
I think it might be a good idea to get in contact with them, because they're doing exactly this. They're giving a platform for all composers of South Africa, and I will send you the information. I will anyway put a link on there about of their website on this, but I'll send you the information and the contact person, because you might find exactly what you are looking for with them, because they are busy also organizing a festival where they will host it's a festival that they'll be hosting in South Africa, and it will be the first time that it's been hosted on the continent. So maybe you could also get involved in that. That would be great.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'd love that.
Yeah. So,
I'm definitely going to
and they're based in South Africa. The other thing I want to tell you is about the leader, the Winterreise. Yes. There's a baritone here in Vienna, Davide Damiani, and he has done the most beautiful video of where he sang from the Winterreise, and he used accordion as accompaniment. And this is so beautiful. I've never heard it with accordion together, but it's so beautiful. I will also send you the video, and you can see what he's done. But I don't think, I think as a baritone, you have to sing these things and show, and how do I, express it in this way? Because I think you all have a different way of expression and a different way of doing it. Yeah. So, but I think you are doing great work, and I know of Franco's. I'm so impressed with what he's doing as well. So. I think, and it's wonderful that you are all collaborating also now, because I think this is also a time to do that, to collaborate and bring out the best that you can of each other, because I think that is the way to do it.
I agree, and the only way we can move forward as an artistic community is to stop fighting each other, work together, and bring out the best in each other.
Exactly.
And I really think that a bit more communication on all our parts can make all the difference.
Yeah.
I think that life has a way of throwing things at you, and it's how you deal with it that determines how successful you'll be.
Yeah. No, exactly. I totally agree. But this was so lovely to talk to you, Chris, and I wish you all the best, and I wish that your wishes come true and that you can get the opportunity to come and sing in Europe.
I would love that.
Yeah. And so keep the wish. Like this,
I will.
The baritone Davide Damiani said that we should always keep the dream on fire. So keep your dream on fire. Yeah.
I will keep my dream on flaming fire. And thank you very much. I'm very grateful to you for this wonderful experience.
No, I'm grateful to you for your time and for talking to me. I will send you the link of the interview I did with Davide Damiani. He's a baritone. You might find that very interesting. And I will send you the video of what he's done with the Winterreise, and that maybe that you know that you're doing the right thing, and you are just continue doing it and go with your gut feeling and sing what you feel your heart wants to sing. And I think then you're doing a great job. Yeah. Chris, this is wonderful, and I hope to meet you one day in person. Maybe you and Franco come to Vienna and we will meet in person one day.
I think that would be a wonderful experience. I would love that. And I've always wanted to visit Vienna. In fact, I've wanted to live there. So I'm very envious of you.
So maybe,
definitely. Maybe it happens.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, well, goed, mooi, bye.